Hey, what's up? Episode 46. We're back in the Bay Area, baby. Just came back from Las Vegas. Finally got my car fixed. Was waiting on the shop for a while there. It was kind of interesting to sort of be in that heat again. I haven't been in the Las Vegas dry heat for that amount of time in quite a while, and it's kind of hard on your body if you're not used to it. But I got some great training in. Went over and trained with Robert Drysdale and his guys. Awesome jiu-jitsu, awesome group to train with. It's really hot, but they keep the place nice and cool inside. I mean, it's at least similar in feeling to what I'm used to up in the Bay Area in California. Not sure how that would sort of correlate to the rest of the country, but I feel like you get used to it, right? As long as they have good airflow in the place. Or I'm not used to training with an air conditioner or a heater, so the gym I'm at where I'm training out of for the majority of the time in Sunnyvale, we don't have any of that climate control. You just open doors and close doors is necessary. So my instructor was always, in the mindset of, okay, it's hot, you train for the heat. Okay, now it's cold, you train for the cold. Kind of a samurai warrior type deal. But it's nice having that climate control sometimes, especially when it gets real cold in the winter. As everybody's been following along, I've been on the road for quite some time. I finally got home and went to the All-Stars, the BJJ Tour All-Stars tournament at the Kaiser Permanente Arena in Santa Cruz. Kind of coached some of my guys over there. Everybody did good, great showing. I always like going to tournaments too because, once you've been around the sort of jiu-jitsu scene for a while, it's nice to run into people you don't, live as close to, or you don't see, maybe old teammates, old instructors, stuff like that. So I always really enjoy going to tournaments just to reconnect and see people I haven't seen in a while and see how people's games progress. So we've got Robert Drysdale this week. He's always been somebody I admired a lot. He got the submission victory at the ADCC. I want to say back in 2007 over Marcelo Garcia. Somebody can correct me on the date on that, the year. It's been a long day, long week, long month. And I used the darts to do it, since that's basically my favorite choke ever. It's kind of weird. I usually don't have a favorite thing. I don't have a favorite color, favorite food, but I do have a favorite choke. I love the darts. It works really well for me. I've got a high percentage finishing it for quite some time now. So I'd say the darts is still my favorite. And he was able to do that to Marcelo Garcia. He's a Brazilian American, so his mom's Brazilian. We'll talk about that, a little bit of his experience living in both countries, because we both have somewhat of a similar experience in that. I mean, he grew up there, but I've spent quite a bit of time back and forth between here and Brazil. So it was interesting to talk to him about some of the parallels on that. But it's been a lot of travel, right? So I haven't really been home since Worlds. I went to LA to beat some people, to get some training in, to attend Worlds. And then from there, I went down to Las Vegas to visit my mom, which turned into somebody hitting my car. And then, I have to wait for my car to be finished. So what do? You get work in, you get things done. You meet people, you shake hands, you train your ass off, and you try to make yourself better in any way possible. One way I get the edge on doing that, in terms of, just staying fresh with the content, keeping going, keeping motivated, staying organized, adjusting, pivoting when times get a little tougher. I use Azoff. It's a nootropic. It's a supplement for your brain, right? Keeps you sharp. It gives you that focus, that mental clarity, right? So it's something that helps me out. It's caffeine free, but it's definitely not stimulant free. And I like that pick me up. I like that, that I just had a lot of coffee and I'm ready to go feeling. So that's something I like for me in the morning. It helps start my day, and it helps me with my training. It helps me with the podcast. So if you guys want to get on board with that as well, as always, it's seekingazoth.com, SEEKINGAZOTH.com. And if you put in the promo code CRONIN, CRONIN, at checkout, you get 15% off of your purchase. So you'll be able to stay focused, kick ass, and get your stuff in gear just like I am, right? Anyway, show on the road. Again, Robert Drysdale is a former UFC tough, I think, season 18 alumni. So he was a part of the UFC for quite some time. He's trained just about everybody that's came out of Las Vegas that's got any grappling to him. He's part of the infamous TT training team back in Sao Paulo, right? So he's an OG. He's from being a purple belt Sao Paulo state champion to being a multi-time world champion and an ADCC champion, where he won the thing over Marcelo Garcia. He's a stud. big guy jiu-jitsu like me. He's somebody I've admired for quite some time. So I'm very honored and pleased to finally get a chance to not only just, get him on the podcast. This is awesome, but to actually spend time there and learn from him and, work with a lot of his guys. So it was a real great experience. Big fan of Robert Drysdale. And, I want to say thank you formally to him on here for coming on and for extending, his gym, just being a great host, and, agreeing to do this stuff on short notice. I know it can be a pain. So I appreciate it very much. And I hope all you guys do too. Again, if you can, show some love. Check out seekingazoth.com, promo code Cronin, and they'll kick back, hopefully to the show. And this will be a big, awesome thing. Everybody will be smarter, faster, better. And otherwise, hope everybody has a great week. Kick ass, go train, go get some work done, and do stuff that makes you happy. Be nice to people, right? Lots of love. Thanks again for listening. This is episode number 46 with Robert Drysdale, The Clint Cronin Show. Please like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends about it, because I'm out there trying to spread the word, the gospel of jiu-jitsu, because I believe that jiu-jitsu makes life better. But let's get more people out there training, being positive, being good to each other, and showing that love, right? All right. Thanks again. Episode 46 from Drysdale Jiu-Jitsu in Las Vegas, Nevada, right here on the west side. Here's the Robert Drysdale. Sunny June afternoon. It's about 1,000 degrees outside, man. How you doing?
Crazy parties to get used to it. I'm doing great, Clinton. Thanks for having me.
Man, well, thanks for having me, man. I came through on Thursday, had an awesome class, man. Awesome technique. It's been a hell of a last 3 weeks. I've been on the road. You just got back from a seminar this weekend. It's good to mix it up, get out there, and sort of train with everybody. Kind of a conversation we got up to the other day, right?
Yeah.
So we have some. Well, like anybody in jiu-jitsu, it's, you jump on Facebook, and it's anybody in jiu-jitsu, like even a white belt, like 150 mutual friends.
Yeah.
So my instructor's instructor, so Dave Camarillo, and you guys go way back.
Probably 99.
Yeah, that's way back, man. That's everybody's kicking ass, really gunning at the bit. Man, I saw a bunch of highlight videos of you back in the day, and so we were kind of going over the stuff. Like I had lived in Brazil just back and forth for a while. So I was married to a Brazilian for about 9 years, and I always thought it was cool that, you're, half Brazilian basically. Well, pretty much 3/4 Brazilian, right? So.
Well, it's half. Half. I spent half my life in Brazil,
right.
Half my life here. My mom's Brazilian, my dad's American. People ask me all the time, like, you consider yourself Brazilian American? Yeah, nationhood is humanity. That's my country. I don't dwell too much if I'm Brazilian. I absorb aspects of both cultures, I guess.
Well, I think that's the best way to go at it, because the first time I was going to go down there to train, I want to say it was like 2007 in Goiânia, and I was really nervous. I was just a white belt at the time, and I wasn't really sure, are we allowed to train in other gyms? Like,
Yeah.
And so going and, checking out some of your stuff, seeing some early interviews, some stuff in magazines, and seeing that you've been already really successful doing exactly that, kind of, let me rest at ease. And by moving around and actually not like leaving my main instructor necessarily, but by being able to, okay, take a trip here, take a trip there, do a little camp here, camp there. It's helped me a lot. And now I've got friends everywhere. It's a really amazing thing. So, you've actually, your big thing to start with was like, you're a Sao Paulo state champion back in the day. Like, being half American, like, was there ever a clash of culture? Like, did you ever get a hard time, like, in Brazil for that?
Yeah. I go to both ways. I guess I'm kind of guy to speak my mind a lot too. So if there's something we criticize about Brazilian culture, I have no issues doing it, and vice versa. In Brazil, I was largely regarded as an American, and here I'm largely regarded as a Brazilian. So I'm kind of used to that. I mean, I'm used to my mom being Brazilian, my father being American. I'm used to the cultural exchange and, going back and forth. My father was a Mormon missionary, and one of my earliest childhood memories was my mom having this heated debate with a Mormon missionary about who invented the airplane.
That's the thing, the first flight, right?
That's a thing. So I'm used to those sort of exchanges. I mean, by the way, if you don't know what I'm talking about, like in Brazil, no one's ever heard of the Wright brothers in Brazil. In Brazil, they're taught that Santos Dumont was the one who invented the airplane. And I have actually spent a considerable amount of time on this subject, and it comes down to the definition of an airplane. So it depends on what you define as an airplane. and that will determine who flew first, Wright brothers or Santos Dumont. But anyway, so I'm used to being like treated as, you know, somewhat of half both places, and it's just been part of my identity for so long it doesn't even bother me anymore.
Not to deviate back to the airplane thing, but the Brazilians, I believe their claim was, if I have this right, was that the Americans had more of a glider versus theirs was a proper prop
well,
plane.
that comes down, if you consider an airplane something that has must have an engine as per definition of an airplane, then Santos Dumont flew first. The Wright brothers had basically, they used a catapult to take off, so to speak, you know, whereas Santos Dumont had an engine. But technically, the Wright brothers flew 2 years prior just without an engine. So it just comes down to the definition of what an airplane is.
Yeah, this if as an American or as a non-Brazilian, if you go to Brazil and you are not expecting a very sported or a feverish argument on this topic, like this is one of the ones, like they will fight you on it.
Oh yeah, like no, just like Americans think it's ludicrous that you're talking about Santos Dumont. You go to Brazil, it's the exact same reaction. I'll give you another one. This one's a little bit closer to home. So I have heated debates with my Brazilian friends every time I go to Brazil, and the point where I'm ridiculed, they make fun of me because I sound like I'm out of my mind. When I tell them that the UFC is not biased against Brazilians, I believe that UFC judges are neutral. If you say this in Brazil, it's not that they're going to get mad; they laugh at you because to them the notion is so ludicrous. You're out of your mind if you believe that UFC judges are not biased towards Americans. I have the same debate here in the United States when I tell them the IBJJF is not biased towards Brazilians. I have many Americans who look at me and laugh. And in the middle of it, I'm able to see it from both perspectives. And I go, I don't see the bias. I mean, maybe if there is, I just fail to see it. I've competed extensively in Brazil, and I think that referees have made many, many mistakes in my matches. Look, I can remember a few, but I don't think it had anything to do with my nationality. You know, I think it, well, you know.
Well, I mean, there's isolated accounts of all things, right? You know, and I'm sure, and it might not even be just Brazilian. It could be someone from their academy. Yeah. And everyone's everywhere.
So it doesn't matter if you're Brazilian American. If you happen to be my friend, I'll have a bias towards you.
That's real.
I just don't think that. I mean, I think back in the day there was a lot more. IBJJF was far less organized, you know, and so was the UFC for that matter. But you know, these days I just don't see it. You know, I think the mistakes are really honest mistakes. Like, you know, I don't think that there's any conspiracy against this people or that people.
What I can tell you for sure is going through those referee training courses we have to go through, right? For IBJJF, I've done the one for BJJ Tour, like both of them this year. And they're like 5-6 hours long. They're monotonous.
It's horrific. I've been through many of them.
And by the time you're actually done refereeing an event, how many hours are they stuck there looking at the same thing? And gi isn't fast. So, I mean, they sit.
You know what it is you have to. I mean, if people who criticize referees, you got to be careful because, you know, I've been a referee. It's not fun. You make a lot of enemies, and you know, there's plenty of research to show that human mind has like a limited amount. It's like you have a little gas tank for attention, you know, and you run out of that pretty quickly. So IBJJF is continue now. So IBJJF is smart enough to give the referees an hour work, and, you know, followed by an hour break. You know, you give them a little break, get some sugar in their system. They're able to pay more attention. But there's no way in such a complex sport you're not going to make mistakes. And it's virtually impossible in such a complicated set of rules not to make a mistake when you've been refereeing, you know, 8 hours. When you're refereeing 8 hours a day, 4 days a week.
I always thought of it as like a parallel. I was in tech for like 15 years, and you'd have these directors and VPs that, like, when something went wrong, they'd want to just, who's that? Who did that? We have to fire somebody. And I'm like, you guys built a system of all these parts that are like, they're not capable of 100% uptime.
It's finger pointing,
And all you're trying to do is like just, like there is no, what do they call it? Like there's no root cause, only contributing factors is really what it is. Like if all parts are imperfect, it's irrational to demand or expect perfection from the finished product. So like for refereeing, you're there all day with rules that are they're not regulations like the military, for example. Like they're very much subject to, you know, like how does it apply to this particular situation?
There's a lot of gray area.
Yeah.
The problem is, and you know, people we are what we are. We find a way of, you know, bordering on the very verge of what is allowed within, you know, those rules. So, you know, competitors really, they'll find the glitches. That's a job of a competitor. I don't blame competitors. Oh, that guy's using manipulating the rules to his favor. Like, well, that means he's smart. That means he's a strategist. That's all it means. It's a compliment if you tell someone that they're smart by playing by the rules. Now you can criticize the rules and you have to change them, improve them. I'm very critical of a number of jiu-jitsu rule sets out there. I don't think IBJJF's perfect. I never have, thought they were perfect, but they've made improvements. I think that there's somewhat of a concept. There's a sequence that resembles combat, and I think that's what's in the background of IBJJF rules. There's a sequence that, granted the many glitches in the sport, there's a sequence that resembles a real fight, and I think that we ought to keep that.
Yeah, just by always sort of trying to increase improve position, always trying to progress the fight.
Yeah.
Like, that's the idea. And I think a lot of the gray area speculation or complaining comes from, first of all, most people don't know the rules, like, at all.
That's the big one. I don't know the rules.
It changes all the time.
I'll give you a true story. So I've done like probably 10 referee courses. I've competed extensively. I've coached. I've been in this my entire adult life, and I have no shame in saying I don't fully understand the rules. Every now and then a student of mine will come up with a question and go, what about this? And I go, I don't know. I have no problems admitting that. Like, there are situations I'm not sure of. And they change the rules a lot, and it's very difficult because the rules are complicated. I'm not going to mention names here, but like high level competitors, multiple world championships under their belt, like, they admit to me left, right, and center, like, Rob, I don't know the rules. I have a good idea, but I don't feel like I've fully mastered the rules, to be honest.
I've taken the same-ish course based on the same rule book, the same revision year of rules from the two different organizations, and had experienced or saw two very similar questions answered in contradictory ways.
Yeah.
And it's like case law.
You know what I've learned is that, like, some referees are more experienced and they understand the rules better than others, and I think that's normal. Going back to your IT, I'm sure there were people in the company who understood the software far better than other people. And I normally go to the head guys. I know who to ask, and it's not easy, man. Like, if you sit down, and I've done this. If you sit down with IBJJF and you point out the loopholes in their rules and you try to fix them, like, I've gotten smoked by them before. I go out there, like, try to talk to these guys, and I have my arguments lined up, and I sit down with them, and every time I'm like, it's a good point. It's not an easy thing to do, to find a happy balance between combat, martial art, a sport, keeping it safe for people, keeping it realistic, keeping it fair, keeping it, there's like so many different overlapping factors. And you have, practitioners that go from 5 years of age all the way to 60, all different levels. It sounds like it would be easy. It isn't. I'll give you this, as critical as I have been of IBJJF over the years. Look where they're at. Like, they've done a lot for jiu-jitsu. You got to keep that in mind. You can hate them, but look at how much they've evolved in the last 20 years. I think that you can always do more, I suppose, but they've done a lot.
And there are different rule sets popping up. I mean, EBI is the most popular thing right now, obviously submission only, but they're being gamed also, because so the non-money events, they know, okay, well, if I don't finish this guy, there's no pay anyway.
I don't think money is that big of an incentive as people think it is. I think practitioners grow more concerned with prestige than they are with money, especially when they're early 20s. I think money is something we start worrying about in our 30s. When you're 20, you're more concerned with being the cool kid around the block than anything. I've had this conversation with one of the head guys at IBJJF, and we were talking about submission only, and I feel that jiu-jitsu ought to be unified. It ought to be one set of rules, and we ought to work within the system to improve it versus splitting it. And like happened to judo. What's happening in jiu-jitsu now is something similar to happened in judo and back in the 1920s, 30s when it split. I think that the sport loses when that happens. Baba, you have to be quiet, okay? Just forgot what I was going. So I've talked to this IBJJF guy, and he goes, this is what submission only is. And agree with him or not, I think he has a point. Today, in the age of marketing and the internet, it's dramatically changed everything. You can get anything. You can get any idea. It could be the worst idea in the world, like the little spinning thing like people have now. I don't know what you call it. Like, they hold on, people buy it at gas station.
The gyro deals people have?
Whatever. Be anything. You market it well enough, people will buy it, right? So you pump air underneath it, right? You pump air. You keep it up there. You keep pumping air underneath it. It's going to stay up there for a while. But the laws of gravity are inevitable. There's nothing you can do about it. Eventually, this is the point he makes, eventually, it's going to fall, going back to submission, it's going to fall exactly where it belongs. If it belongs up here, it's going to stay up here. If it belongs down here, it's going to stay down there. Marketing can only keep something up there for so long. And I think that a lot of what the hype has been around submission only is largely really successful marketing skills. It has nothing to do with
production, man.
I mean, like, if you keep, for example, if you keep saying it's the most exciting thing in the world, well, it becomes the most exciting thing in the world. Like, if you just keep repeating it, like, And then you ignore the boring matches. You just pump up the exciting ones, and then anything can be exciting, anything can be boring, depending on what you choose to focus on. I don't see them going anywhere beyond where they have gone so far. I think they pretty much peaked already, to be honest. I can't prove this, but my guess would be that the sales are down on, a lot of these submission-only events. And I say this by my own students, and I travel a lot, and I talk to jiu-jitsu people everywhere I go, and the interest has gone down a lot. Like, it used to be a year ago, it was like the greatest idea ever. Now it's kind of like, are you going to watch the next one? Maybe, maybe not. Whereas before, everyone was watching it. For better or for worse, regardless of what you think, I just don't see them really being able to establish an opposition to IBJJF.
So what I saw at this last Worlds over in Long Beach, which is really amazing. What was it called? The Pyramid over in the CSU Long Beach?
Yeah.
Wow, they filled it. They filled it for the black belt finals. It was a Sunday too.
Yeah. It's it's growing. People are like, oh, it should be mainstream. Guys, it doesn't work that way. They have, and this is the point, going back to like the pumping air underneath something, any idea, and you keep it up there, but eventually, and he makes this point about IBJJF. Like, IBJJF started from the very, very bottom. You got to remember where they started. They started in '94 in Brazil. People made fun of them. They had their first world championship because it was basically all Brazilians in the crappiest arena ever. Like, everything was crappy. Like, this is a world championship. That was 20 years ago, right? 22 years ago. The first world championship was 95. Look where they are today. Like, it looks like the Olympics.
It does.
You go to their events, they're absolutely beautiful. And they have been taking steps towards promoting fighters more and giving them the recognition they deserve. And, I'm over there. I won the world championship, the Black Belt 11, 2005, right? That was a while ago. I'm walking around, this guy walks up to me and goes, Rob, like, can I take a picture? Hold his t-shirt, take a picture. I'm like, okay. It says world champion. I'm like, oh, cool, and I pose with the picture. Next thing you know, I see my face on the big screen. I was like, whoa, that was 12 years ago. Yet they still choose to acknowledge that, yes, I did something. Like, they're making steps in that direction. Like, Buchecha has made more money than any other absolute champion prior to him.
Oh, yeah.
Far more. So a lot of the critique, I think, is just hate. I think there's a lot of hating going on, too. And I think that going back to the nationalist thing, I'm not going to, I can't say it's this person, that person, this group of people, that group of people, but I think some people resent the fact that it's a Brazilian organization. I really think that. I'll say this because I'm American and people sometimes forget I'm half Brazilian. They'll say things to me, and I'll hear it. I'll give you one example. Someone said this to me a while ago, and the guy was a little drunk, and he goes like this, and he tells me, Rob, how can Brazilians be so good at jiu-jitsu? And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, he's puzzled. He can't figure it out. I'm like, how? Why are they so good? They train. It's like anyone else. You can be from Angola, Australia, Japan. It doesn't matter where you're from. You train, you get good. That's the way I see it, right? But he's puzzled as to a people who considers to be so inferior to himself. He doesn't realize how racist he's being.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and that he considers to be so inferior to himself can actually be so good at something he loves so much. And I hear stuff like this all the time. People, say the most obnoxious things without realizing that, there is just like their nationalist, chauvinistic pride is really speaking over, not over any reason.
People need to travel more, man. They need to travel more. The passport should be mandatory. I just did one of those Ancestry.com DNA things the other day.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't anything I thought I was. I'm basically.
I gotta try one day.
I'm like everything. I'm like everything.
I got my father's side English and Scottish, Drysdale obviously. My mother's side all Italians, so I'm about as white as it gets. I guess. So I wouldn't know. Like, I'm sure there's something else in there.
In Brazil, you can have a dinner table full, like, you'll have like someone's black, someone's tan, a couple white people, and they're all blood related.
Yeah.
First generation cousins. Like, that's one family there. Yeah. It's very common there.
Yeah. And it's a very different population in all the ways. I mean, it had a lot of overlapping with American history, but I always recommend this book to people that want to understand Brazil. If you never traveled to Brazil, you know nothing about Brazil. There's a book called The Brazilian People by anthropologist Darcy Ribeiro. Very, very good book. Highly recommend. One of my favorite books of all time. And he gives a very good description of Brazilian people and Brazilian culture, and it's a highly recommended book.
I'll definitely check it out. I know from just being there and experience, it's like family's a big deal there. I know more people with less there that are just substantially happier. And like
when I have my bad days, Clint, this is what I tell myself. I just try to remind myself of the people in the Cantagalo. You know, if you ever been with slum in Brazil, it's hard to describe how bad things are there. We're talking open sewer. Maybe you have electricity, maybe you don't. You have to climb a hill for 30 minutes to get home every day. We're talking a hill here. We're not talking, you know, a slope here. It's upwards. And the happiest people, I mean, they live in the midst of violence and you know, basically it's like a brutal war with Brazilian police, and the happiest people I've ever seen. Like, hands down, they're always, I guess because when you have nothing to lose, it's like, that's what causes anxiety in modern world, is just the fact that we want, right? And then when we get it, we want more because now we're trying to compete with our neighbors.
Oh, yeah.
And that causes depression, anxiety, the fact that you're always trying to achieve something that's not really fulfilling. With, you know, if you're born in a slum in Rio de Janeiro, you have no life expectations, so there's zero pressure on you, right? What are you going to do? You're not going to become a doctor, you know that. You have nothing to lose. So what do you do with your time? Well, you're happy, you know, and I envy them in some ways. I won't say I want to live like that, but, you know, in some ways I envy them.
No, so there's some differences. I mean, I love carpet. I remember being stuck in the Sao Paulo airport and Brasilia airport and Distrito Federal for way too long, to just travel nightmare, whatever, and getting back to Atlanta airport and that nice cushiony carpet under my feet. Like, I missed that, but the rest of it I didn't miss.
Yeah.
I really like just the idea that they have this concept of family there that extends to neighbors and cousins and second cousins and third cousins. I don't have a very large family, so for me, being down there was it was really nice. I enjoyed it a lot.
I think that the Anglo-Saxon, American mindset is very, and it has there's a positive side to it as well, but it's very individualistic in the sense where when you're 18, your parents kind of like, all right, buddy, you're on your own, you know, and it become very independent individuals in a lot of way. Whereas in Brazil, if you're 25 and you live with your parents, that's completely normal. I have no shame in saying this. I lived with my mom until I was like 26 and I moved to the U.S. And it's because of her that I was, it's possible that I'm here. Like, she supported me in so many ways. I was essentially, living with her till I was 26 and paid all my bills pretty much. So they gave me the time to train and win the tournaments I needed to win to be able to be on my own. This going back to the thing we're talking about, like, one reason Brazilians are good. So that's one reason. If you can live with your parents at 25, you don't have to work. No one cares if you go to school or not. You have no obligations in life. All you do is train all day. Yeah, you better be good at jiu-jitsu. So it's a huge cultural advantage that exists in Brazil that a lot of people here aren't aware of. Whereas here, you're 18, you're on your own. Your concern is paying rent. It's very hard to focus in jiu-jitsu unless you have parents backing you.
Well, yeah, because we have this culture here that is besides the idea. First of all, we're nomadic. Yeah. Second of all, you have this capitalist system, or there's capitalism everywhere, but here it's
very ingrained in the culture.
It's so ingrained in the culture. Yeah. It's basically to an idea where if I'm not directly helping myself, I'm directly hurting myself, and it's gross.
Yeah, Well, I think you have to. It sounds cliche, but a really balance between things. Like, there are certain things about this aspect of American culture I think have made it a very successful country in a lot of ways, but I think family is important, like in Brazil, people, they get married, they move out of their parents' house, but they move across the street. They don't move across the country.
No.
I remember I had a girlfriend in Brazil, and when we moved to the United States in 2008, her parents couldn't understand that she was moving across the world. Like, why would you, how can you not live? Like, it was hard thing for them to conceptualize. Like, why would you live? I'm going to see you once a year. That's crazy. They couldn't understand why, because family is something you see, if not every day, at least every week. And I like that aspect. What you're describing is something I understand well, like getting together on a Sunday and barbecuing with family and friends. That's the main thing I miss about Brazil, is that sense of community. Yeah.
Community. For me, besides traveling all around like this, I'm out here more than I'm in San Francisco. When I'm home, I don't leave my neighborhood. I know everybody that lives by me, like all the shops and stuff. Like, there's a comic book shop behind my house. The gym I train at is literally 0.02 miles. Yeah. It's all walkable. Like, I don't leave my neighborhood. I like the sense of community. And you made a really good point, and it's something that resonated with me, is that Brazilian women don't adjust well.
They don't adjust well. Yeah. It's such a common theme. I've had this conversation with so many people. They marry Brazilian women because they're very sexual, very beautiful, and they take good care of themselves, and they're good, housewives. And a lot of women are attracted to that, right? Like, they want to marry that sort of women, and they move them over. And I've seen that more times than I can count. Like, women don't adapt here. No, very few of them. My mother's a prime example. She married my father in Utah. We lived in Hemet, California for a while. And after 8 years in the U.S., 7 years in the U.S., my mom's like, I want to go back to Brazil. My dad loved Brazil, so it wasn't a problem. But that's why they moved back, because my mom didn't want to live here anymore. It's a very common thing.
For me, that was like the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
Like I was starting to recognize it, but like I was like, oh, career this, that, like the American thing. I'm like American priorities, and like that was like eventually one of the big split things. So she wanted to go back, and the mom wanted her back, and like that was the conversation.
And none of that. Like they talk every day.
Like constantly.
They're all day on
WhatsApp,
Skype. It's constant communication. My sister talks to my mom for 2 hours a day on either WhatsApp or Skype or one of them.
Just constant dialogue.
It's like they're neighbors, you know.
Yes.
And there's a lot of women, they want to move back, and it's, you know, obviously economically speaking, you live better in the U.S. There's more comfort here. There's no doubt. There's more life expectations in a lot of ways in the U.S. But
safer, maybe.
It's safer. You know, you make more money. You drive a nicer car. You live in a better house. For the most part, life here is more comfortable. But for some people, that, you know, it's not that it's not important. It just falls in second place. You know, being near your family just becomes more important for a lot of people. And I think that especially Brazilian women seem to really lean towards being near family and friends, you know, over making money.
The mothers, the families in general, they don't necessarily prepare them for a life outside of that close community, that family community. And not, to their detriment if they leave. If they stay, fine. If everybody stays together, everyone's fine. But like it's not just internal pressure, but it becomes external as well. It almost is like an extension of like empty nest syndrome.
Yeah.
Because, you know, once the kids are, you know, off to school or all successful, then you got the parents home, and it's husband and the wife kind of sitting there like, now what do we do? You know, this one's out here, and I've got one, you know, far away, you know, oh, she's having a bad time, you know, bring it on back. But it's the women themselves, like, you know, it's difficult for them. There aren't that many Brazilians here, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's changing, because if you're, for example, if you're tightly knit into a jiu-jitsu community and the gym becomes your second family, you know, even if you don't have your blood family near you, you have a second family that makes up for it in a lot of ways. You know, you have some people that, you know, you interact with on a daily basis, and I think that can make up for it. But if you don't have that and you're not working because maybe you don't speak the language, or because you're having a hard, maybe you're not, you know, you're not legal yet, so you can't work, and you just at home watching TV, it's very hard to. So if you're thinking about marrying a Brazilian woman, just give some advice. Keep her busy, you know, get her a job, you know, and keep her near lots of people, because like they're very much they're social butterflies. I think that I've been around Brazilian women my whole life, and they're very, very social. So it's important to them.
I think it comes down to any, you know, woman coming from another country into the United States, like getting in and, you know, working and, you know, having that sense of pride, or, you know, whether it's, you know, having kids or going out and working. Everyone in the workforce now. I used to manage some guys from India. They bring their wives over, and it was a big deal. Like, okay, like I need to get this visa stuff going now, because they want to go back to work. Like they're doctors in their country, and they come over here and they're stuck, you know, babysitting or something. And it's a huge blow to the pride, because it's like
very proactive women. Brazilian women are very proactive. I get my mom as an example. She is a workhorse. Like I've never seen a person who enjoys work more than my mother. She just doesn't stop. And I think she's like stereotypical Brazilian in that way. Like Brazilian women are very, very active, and they just can't sit at home and just be, you know, they don't mind cooking, but like that's not them. Like they need more than that, and they're just very, very, like I said, proactive women.
Yeah, they most of them that I know that have come here have like 3 hustles. They make this, they sell this, they work here, they do this, they got the Uber route, even though they make plenty of money. Like they're still doing Uber on the side. Like they have hustle, like they work, and it's you know it's awesome. It's then for that reason it's really appealing for a lot of guys. And then but you got to realize, like they're gonna want to go home. They're gonna want to go home. Yeah. You got to visit often. You're gonna be spending money on those trips. Just like put it aside. Like I was there a month a year. And it was cool for me because I just trained, and when they'd watch novellas or whatever on Globo, I'm like, cool, I'm going to work out.
That's like the one thing I don't miss about Brazil is TV. If you think TV here is bad, you don't want to see Brazilian television, man. But like, women are obsessed with Globo, and like I know you can get it here, so a lot of Brazilian families will get it.
$20. Just the one channel is $20.
Oh man.
So we always had that. We always had Globo. We'd record. Like you had to have it, but they wouldn't watch it because like there's 2 groups of like TV watchers in Brazil, like the moms and the families and stuff. Yeah. There's the Protestant and Catholic ones. They don't watch each other's channel really.
Yeah, there is that. You know, you just reminded me of something. Like you know, when I was a child, this is a real thing in Brazil. Like when I was a child, about 90% of my friends, maybe more, were Catholic.
Yep.
Catholicism was a dominant religion in Brazil. Like, this is in the 80s, okay? Early 90s. And then if you were, Protestant, you were crente, is how they called them. Like now, it's completely flipped, and it's become a class thing too.
Oh.
It goes well beyond just the TV channels. That's one realm where they clash. But there's also a class thing. If you're wealthy, the wealthier families, stay loyal to the Catholic Church. The lower class, because like these Protestant churches, they had a strategy, like we're going to target the poor Catholics, they start opening up these little churches all over,
like in the little mini mall shopping centers, like
and
the
they're
plastic
tiny,
chairs,
and they're tiny, and they're targeting poor people, and it's the vast majority of the country, so they grew very, very quickly. Today, it's flipped completely. It's like 90% Protestant, maybe 10% Catholic, and it was interesting to watch because like I saw that happen, and now what's happening, a lot of these small Protestant churches are targeting the wealthy as well. So they're opening these really nice, in wealthier areas.
like the ones you see in Texas, like in Dallas, they have a real big
Yeah,
place.
and then just like you can see, like they have a very modern design. They're not cheap. Like you can spend a lot of money to church. It's the same doctrines, but they're targeting the wealthy. There's a class thing in Brazil. You probably saw this. Like, they're two separate Brazils, right? If you're Brazilian, you're probably mad at me now saying that there's no such thing. But any foreigner that go to Brazil will notice this immediately. There are two Brazils. You have the Brazil that, although they live in Brazil, their ideas, their mind, they really have their heads and their spirits in Miami. That's where they think. I'm from Miami. I'm not from Brazil. Although they live in Brazil or in Europe. That's how they see themselves. I'm too sophisticated for the rest of these people. And then you have vast majority of the population that is, poor, lives in slums, and they listen to different music, they dress differently, they go to different places, they don't eat the same food. It's two separate countries, and it's very hard to describe to a Brazilian because he doesn't see it. But foreigners see it all the time. I'd have these kids from Europe that come train with me in Brazil, and the first thing, like day 1 and 2, and they'd notice, it's like, man, like, what's up with that? Like they'll see that class warfare. It's very, very, present in Brazilian society.
So like in early 07, my first, I think it was like late 06, early 07, like my first kind of real trip out to Brazil for an extended period of time, when I would tell people I did jiu-jitsu and I'm like looking for academies there, it didn't have that glow it has now because of the UFC. And I'm going to say because of the UFC, it had died down substantially. Yeah. And you would see like one gym and so Goiânia, for example, would have like 1 or 2 gyms, but they'd have a bunch of Thai boxing gyms because that got popular. Yeah. But for that during that time, like when the first Tough came out for a couple of years afterwards, jiu-jitsu still had kind of a
bad rep.
Yeah.
Like I remember like when I, when I started training, if you told people that you did jiu-jitsu for, other people look at you like, but what's your job? Like, no, I teach jiu-jitsu. No, but what's your job? I know, I understand you train jiu-jitsu, but like, what's your job? Like, they didn't. And then your girlfriend's parents will probably like, you don't want to date that guy. That's the wrong guy. It's like the equivalent of being a gang member almost. Oh well, that's how they looked at it
on TV. That's how it was portrayed. They were like, oh, they bring pit bulls into clubs and start fights. Like it's ironic.
Like a gang member. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ironic now that jiu-jitsu is the bully-proof thing.
What's funny? It's flippantly, and I was able to watch this happening. It's, to me, one of the most irritating things about the Brazilian society is that there's UFC, MMA, or Vale Tudo was a Brazilian invention. As we know it today, it came down through the UFC. It existed in other places of the world, but it came down through the UFC.
Sure.
They came through the Gracie family. They came through a fighting tradition that goes back to the 1930s in Brazil. That's what the MMA we know today. MMA in Brazil was always very marginal, and it was, the equivalent of being a gang member. Like, you do that for a living, you're a barbarian. It wasn't something that civilized people did. That's how they looked at it. MMA had to be imported to the United States. It blew up in the United States. It became a mainstream sport in the United States, and that's when the Brazilian upper class went, we accept it.
Yes.
If Americans like it, we like it. And it's this lack of cultural identity that Brazilian suffers from. And if Americans like it, it's cool, but if it's ours, it's absolute garbage. So the very same people, I have it with my family, who, when I told them I was doing jiu-jitsu and I wanted to fight MMA one day, they would sit me down and have like long-held meetings with me. Rob, you have to go to school. This is ridiculous. You're better than this. The very same people like watch every UFC. They know more about the UFC than I do. The same people. So what's changed?
Hollywood.
It was something that once other people accept it, now we like it, but they can't be proud of it because it's something that they did, and
now they complex. Are. Now they know. But
now they're fiercely proud of their fighters, but they had to be accepted in the United States first for them to be accepted in Brazil.
So when Chael and when Anderson Silva fought, broke his leg with what was his name from New York?
Chris Weidman.
Chris Weidman. I feel so bad. That guy had such a great run up to the title, then winning the title, beating Anderson twice. Huge Anderson Silva fan, but like Chris Weidman never really got his own identity. He won the fights, but it was like they were like the Anderson Silva fights. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So in Brazil, I was there when he broke his leg, and everybody I was like a pariah. Everywhere I went, they're like, "So your guy won." I'm like, "Yeah," but
you're supposed to defend. Like I get that all the time.
I'm a Silva. I love Anderson Silva.
I couldn't care. Like I only root for my friends, to be completely honest. Like if I don't know them, I'm either or. But I feel like under pressure like that all the time.
The news was there like 24 hours like straight, like waiting. Anderson like trying to get news on like it was like he died or something.
Yeah,
I'm like, he broke his. It's all right. I don't know.
But he became a national hero. But it took a while for them to be, for that to happen. And I just don't understand. It's like this is something that Brazilians created. Like, why weren't you guys proud of this before? Why is it okay now? Now it's like, I think it's fair to say it's the second biggest sport in Brazil. It's never going to beat soccer, obviously, but But like it's the second most important sport in Brazil right now.
Yeah. I mean, it passed F1, it passed volleyball. Whatever else.
It's huge. Like Damien was like a superstar in Brazil. He was on national television all the time. And I think that they deserve that in a lot of ways. But like my beef is really with, like the I guess it's really like a identity complex. And it's I wish it weren't like that. That's what I'm trying to say.
You think it comes back to like the socioeconomic thing we were kind of talking about earlier, like the class thing and
it's a class thing. Yeah, they don't see the Brazilian upper middle and upper class. They don't see themselves as Brazilians. I'll give you an example. If they have two names, right? Brazilian, they sometimes have four, but they'll have like a middle name they took from their mom, and the last name, a surname they take from their dad, right?
The baptism name.
If one name is European or Italian or German, that's the name they'll use. It doesn't matter if it's the middle name or the last name. If the other one is Silva, which is a very typical Brazilian name, they don't use it.
They'll drop the Silva.
Because it's like, it's a poor person. I don't want to be associated with those poor people. I'm really European. So that's it's this identity crisis that a lot of people have in Brazil. Like for example, I have friends of mine, if you ask them where they're from, they go, I'm Italian. Never been to Italy. Doesn't speak a word in Italian. Right, but like they don't call themselves Brazilians. I'm Italian because they don't want to be associated with,
I think
poor people. Right?
I think it'd be like less now because Brazil has that shine to it now. Now it's cool to be Brazilian.
Look, there is when they leave Brazil, they become Brazilian. But while they're in Brazil, they won't even go to the same bar some people go because that's where poor people go. So there's a lot of that in Brazil and. It's different. It's you have to be in Brazil to understand it. It's very, very. If you're Brazilian, you don't notice it. You take it for granted. It's like fish underwater doesn't know what water is. But if you're a foreigner, you go to Brazil, you notice these things, and it screams at you.
And I like those little bars in the street with the churrasquinha. Those are, and the price to drink at one of those versus drinking an expensive bar is like a huge difference.
It's a huge difference because they're meant for different demographics.
It's the same Brahma, same Skull,
it's the same beer. It's the same quality food, but the music's different. You should pay attention. The music is very different. Like the wealthier classes listen to a very different type of music. There's some overlap. Yeah, they're more in tune with what's being played in a nightclub in Miami, in Las Vegas, in New York, and Milan. Than they are with popular Brazilian music.
They're not playing baile funk.
They're not the popular. No, they're not the popular classes, and they make sure to make that distinction between the two. Like they don't want to be associated.
It's crazy how many people in Miami are Brazilian. Like Miami Beach, the majority of people I met were Brazilian.
I go to Miami, people speak Spanish to me all the time, or like they're just or Portuguese. Like people straight up approach me as assuming that you speak. Spanish. Yeah.
It happened to me in Portuguese at the rental car place just last week. Because I bounced back from Havana back to Miami Beach or to Fort Lauderdale, then back to Miami Beach, and the woman comes up, she's like asking me in Portuguese, like, do we just take the car and leave because it's the preferred one? I'm like, that's it, and just didn't even try to speak to me in English first. Just like assumed I spoke Portuguese. I was like, that's how many Brazilian people are here, and all that. Some awesome food there. There's awesome Brazilian food in that town.
That's another thing I miss a lot about Brazil is the food, man. Like I grew up eating arroz, feijão, farofa, bife, salada, churrasquinho. So it's very hard for me not to eat those things on a daily basis. I love Mexican food. That's one thing I love about Vegas is the variety of food I get here. you don't get anywhere else in the world. I tell people Vegas is the best place. If you're a foodie, Vegas is hands down the best place in the world to live because you get the variety you don't get anywhere else and good quality. But I still miss Brazilian food.
For being nowhere near the East Coast, there's actually 2 pretty decent pizza places here. I found 2.
All right.
One is New York Pizza and Pasta on Jones and Sahara. It's been there 20-something years. The guy's from Long Island. He's been here forever. He's been here since before. So I lived here in like 2000, 2001, and they were here for years then. The other one I found, and I don't like going to the Strip because I don't want to be on the Strip. I used to live here. I always saw myself as a local that just kind of bounces back and forth. So, but it's in the Cosmo. It's called Secret Pizza. There's no sign. There's nothing. You go to the 3rd floor, and there's like a break. It's split in the wall. You just walk through, and it's just some pizza like hole in the wall, literally a hole in the wall.
But see, like you'll find New Jersey has overall better pizza than Vegas, but I guarantee you the sushi there is not as good as Vegas, or the Mexican or the Thai. Like Vegas has good everything. Like you're gonna find good Korean here. If you go to Vietnamese and. Even the Brazilian food, Texas Brazil, one of my favorite restaurants of all time. It's just expensive. Like barbecue, steakhouse in Brazil it's cheap. It's gone up. The last time I was there, it was pretty priced. But like it used to be cheap when I was a kid. It wasn't. Meat in Brazil is very cheap. One of the world's largest exporter of beef. But it's expensive here, so I can't eat it all the time. But I'd go to churrascaria every day if I could.
Yeah, man.
I had that sponsorship for a while. It was awesome.
That's a tremendous sponsor.
That's the sponsor right there.
I'd be an ultra heavyweight.
and the churrascaria was across the street from the gym, so we would eat there every day.
So this is in Sao Paulo?
This is in São Paulo. That was the best sponsor I've ever had.
Dude, yeah, because here, so for me, I don't like to do it for dinner. I like going for lunch because, you get to, get the meat sweats out. You get your nap in the middle of the day and then still be okay at night as opposed to, you eat it for dinner and you're just like a lump just holding your stomach in the bed. Like, why did I do this? And it's like $20 less. The only difference that I've noticed is, stuff like coração de frango and, the chicken hearts. And
you can't find it here.
They don't
chicken heart I've never seen here. I'm sure you might be able to find it somewhere. I've never had it here.
We don't have them in San Jose. The Fogo de Chão doesn't have it, but I think there's a couple smaller ones, like Cleo's.
I think the concept of eating the heart of a chicken really terrifies most Americans. They're delicious, but they have a funny texture if you're not used to it.
Liver. It's like a tighter liver.
But tastes better. I don't like liver. I don't eat liver. I just don't like the taste. But I like the taste of chicken hearts.
You can go through a bunch of them too. It's like a sausage-sized snack thing, but they're good. Then sometimes they don't have the pineapple for dinner too, or for lunch. So I would only at dinner, like the grilled pineapple.
You're making me hungry, man. You're killing me, Glenn.
Yeah, I like food. I like food a lot. It's I need to put weight on again. I just being on the road for almost a month straight, I lost probably 15 pounds.
That's the thing. I lose muscle when I put on fat crazy when I travel. It's unbelievable how quick that happens.
I get home I'm skinny fat. All right.
I'll be in the hotel room sometimes at 11:30 at night. I'll be doing push-ups, just trying to get that workout in.
I'll start the worst part is I'll put on a T-shirt that fit this is one of the good ones. This one fits right because it's hard do jiu-jitsu, then weights, and trying to find clothes that fit right, especially if you're just weird body types. I have just a weird body type. It's hard to find clothes, so I'll get a shirt that fits perfect, and then I'll be on the road for a week or something, and I'll put it on. I'm skinny fat.
Yeah, I get skinny fat quickly.
Yeah, I think it's
gotta watch out. I think that we're because been trained for so long, we're very in tune with our bodies, and any change we notice. I notice any. Change. I'm turning 36 in October this year, and I'm so in tune with my body. I can feel the difference. The changes happens on almost a daily basis. I notice you slightly slower, slightly your reflexes aren't there. Your recovery is definitely not there. So the way I look at it is I got to be even more thorough about my diet and and how I train, and even be smart about it. Because before I didn't stretch, I didn't cool down. I was who stretches? Why would you ever do that? And now it's everything you can do to improve on your recovery counts. And I used to listen to people in my age when I was 20 and listen to them and you guys are full. You're Wolverine, right? You don't care. But now being 35, I can start feeling that drastic change in my body and how it deals with training. And you do stretching is a thing.
Yeah, it's stretching for sure. I started all this because for jiu-jitsu guys, it's even weightlifters, wrestlers, boxers, where our whole world is right here.
Yeah.
So doing those upper back bends, any of the chest opening or yoga type stuff, dude, it's.
I'm rewriting my workout programs. I'm moving away from heavy weights, and I'm focusing on mobility. I've discovered that at this stage of my life, mobility will help my jiu-jitsu a lot more than being strong will. So I'm not concerned with like heavy deadlifts anymore. I'm really going to make a shift over to more mobility-oriented exercises because, when you're 20, once again, like mobility just comes naturally. You just move like a cat. It's easy. As you go, it gets harder and harder to move. Like you're just not as coordinated. You just start slowly losing that. So, yeah, that's my focus is going to be on mobility in the next few years.
I actually heard it was Mark Smelly Bell. He was actually even talking about that. It's one of these super powerlifter dudes. He was a pro wrestler for a while. Like he's like one of the powerlifter guys, especially on like in terms of being on YouTube or fucking iTunes or any of those other sort of social media things. He's got like a really popular podcast. He's even dude with like a 900-pound deadlift or whatever it is. Now he's just doing 225 or something.
I think when it comes to heavy weightlifting, I've came to the conclusion, although the effects for jiu-jitsu are real, they pale in comparison with other things you could be focusing on. I lift weights mainly for injury prevention these days. I think that is a bigger benefit to weightlifting than actual performance. But I think that in jiu-jitsu, I think we intend to neglect, certain things that are fundamental for jiu-jitsu, like mobility, for example, and overemphasize things that will help you some. Bench pressing will help you some, but it's not gonna, if you can bench press, 500 pounds, it's not gonna revolutionize your jiu-jitsu. But if you could do I think that having superior, term again, but like agility, dexterity, or mobility, whatever, that would help you a lot more. And it's something that we spend very little time working on.
I feel like dexterity is this one thing that's just this sort of functional flexibility, right?
Yeah.
It's this one unsung hero, and the guys
you move correctly. You move like you have to put the hook here, right? The hook doesn't go here or there. It goes where it has to go first try. Whereas a lot of times I feel like if I have to get that hook when I'm on the back, I hit the knee or hit the elbow. Like the movement is not as precise as it used to be or as it ought to be. And I feel that's like one of the biggest changes over the years is just like, like getting frustrated trying to get that hand on the collar was before I go in the collar right away. Now it hits, like I don't have as much, the control I have over my body is not as in tune, with the commands that as they used to be. Like my brain is telling my body to do one thing, but my body's just not keeping up.
I feel like it's diminishing return. No case of diminishing returns with the, you say you have a 500-pound bench press, like at white belt, that's huge. But then as like you progress, you start getting
becomes
better.
less and less significant.
You're like, oh wow, this is really just my ability to move these. My upper body is just an extension of my ability to bridge correctly.
Yeah,
and
it's one aspect of
Yeah.
the puzzle. It's just like a small piece of the puzzle. It's not the whole story.
Yeah, because like your arms only really come into play as a frame type situation, and like if you're really doing any of this pushing outward with forearms, it's like that's really your bridge and your hip movement, and it's like
one thing I tell people, like if you want to, an intelligent way of working out for jiu-jitsu, I tell people is how many muscle groups can you incorporate into the movement. So me, clean and press is like really efficient one because you're engaging in, I don't even know how many muscle groups, but bicep curl is kind of pointless. I mean, you can do it. It's going to help you in some ways. There's some use for it, but how many muscle groups are you really engaging with that versus doing a clean and press or like some resistance exercises or you can get creative there, but like you really want to maximize body weight and
kettlebells, like those
incorporate as many movements into the exercise as possible.
What do you call them? Like the Turkish get-ups, those clubs, the ones like the Iron Sheik used to do.
Yeah, those are great, man.
Those are crazy.
I hate those sort of exercises because like they're so taxing on your cardio, and I hate cardio, but like they really, who likes it, right? I see people that jog for fun, and I can't understand it. Like, how can you enjoy running? I can't think of anything worse to do.
It's because they haven't done drugs, and their body figured out that they can synthesize those good chemicals.
I know people that enjoy. It must be a way that if you're lighter, obviously it's a lot easier. But that's the one thing I don't miss from preparing for a fight or for a tournament, or whatever. It's just like getting that cardio, and I don't miss that at all. It's I see the importance. I understand it's important. I hate it.
Yeah, no, I always have because I walked funny as a kid, so like the running just stuck in my head.
It's boring. The thing is, it's boring. It's not fun. Like jiu-jitsu is fun.
Yeah. Like
I'm on a mat for an hour, and I'm killing myself, but I've burned 800 calories, but it doesn't feel like it. Like I'm having fun because it's intellectually engaging. My mind is very involved in what I'm doing. When I'm running, I'm just like staring at the clock the whole time. It's like how much time do I have left?
Yeah, I mean, even the rolling, the drilling, there's something satisfying of feeling a technique become sharper, going from that. I don't know if I can. If
It feels like you're going somewhere.
Yeah.
There's a purpose. Whereas if you run on a treadmill, like, what's the objective here? Like, I'm not, people that really like lifting weights or really in love with CrossFit. Like, I respect if that's their passion. I just don't get it. Like, what's the point? I don't see the goal here. Like, whereas if I'm trying to beat you at something, like there's a purpose, like I'm trying to. But I guess you can, someone that loves, just breaking, setting PRs is, say the same thing about jiu-jitsu. What's the point of beating someone on the mats? You enjoy it. What's the point?
I guess the big thing is that they're actually out doing something as opposed to just hanging out smoking cigarettes on the couch. I mean, it's huge.
Pursue your passion. That's whatever your passion is. Find it. I think that's one of the things I count myself most fortunate in life. One of the most fortunate things that ever happened was finding jiu-jitsu at a very young age and being at the right place, the right time, and having, people who supported me because they allowed me to create my dream job. It's not always happy. I have bad days like any other job, and it gets rough. Being a school owner and a team owner, it's kind of like being a principal in high school. You're dealing with very immature people a lot of times, and it just wears on you too. But at the end of the day, man, like it's I love jiu-jitsu, and being able to teach it to people and share it with people on a daily basis it has its cons, but it's very rewarding.
So, I mean, you've got a couple schools around town. So the Zenith is the affiliation?
Well, Zenith is a team. It used to be Drysdale Jiu-Jitsu. I was always somewhat uncomfortable having my name as the name of the team. For a number of reasons. I respect people who do that. I've done it in the past, obviously, but I was always somewhat uncomfortable with it. It wasn't my idea. It was my former business partner's idea, and he was adamant about it. But Zenith was more of a neutral umbrella, and when I partnered up with my good friend Cavaca, we formed a new team. And it's growing, man. It's to the point where now, before it was like a side operation outside the gym. Now it's a full-on, full-time job. It's grown so much, and it's one of those things where I'm having to hire more staff to work on the team because I can't do it on my own. It's just impossible.
So between you guys, how many schools roughly do you have?
Between worldwide?
Yeah.
200.
Wow. That's crazy.
Half of them in Brazil. Brazil is like the main, and all over Brazil too. Like most teams will have like very strong in certain states and certain areas and certain countries. I feel that we have a reasonable presence elsewhere, which was our goal. We wanted to plant seeds all over the world, not just in California or only in Sao Paulo or only in, and it will make for a very strong presence for tournaments in those areas. But our goal was always to plant seeds worldwide, and I think that's long run, that's a better format.
It is, because you still have cases of lots of inexperience and unqualified gyms popping up, instructors in random places in the world.
You can't stop it.
No,
no one takes martial arts seriously enough to actually care. That's the thing. You can't. If you were a doctor, if you're a doctor and you said and you open a clinic, say, "I'm going to perform brain surgery on people," you never went to school. They would shut you down. They put you in prison. But if you're a fraudulent black belt, you never train, you know nothing about jiu-jitsu, but you go talking about it, you tie a black belt around your waist. There's no such thing as a jiu-jitsu police. You can't. You get away with it. And what are you going to do?
Oh my God!
There's nothing you can do about it.
The internet does stuff about it. Have you seen some of these cases?
I have seen it, but that guy could call the police. If I dojo storm someone's gym and I want to expose that person as a fraud, that guy can call the police and have me arrested. It's not a. If you can't have. It's not a. It's funny and everything. And when I seen those videos and I go, thank God someone's finally doing something about this. You can't really, what are you going to do? You can't, in the long run, there's nothing, you can't stop them. That guy's still in business probably. So you can't, even though he's been humiliated, those people are still in business. Yeah, I got to go soon.
Okay, sorry.
I got people waiting for me.
All right, cool. Well, I just want to wrap it up real quick. Robert Drysdale, he's down here. This is off of Rainbow
and Sahara
here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Come by, check it out. It's got a big Venom training center out front on the front banner. Awesome jiu-jitsu. I appreciate your time, man. Anything?
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Clint. It was a pleasure. We should do this again in the future. Yes. We got so much to talk about. We barely touched on anything, but I hope you guys enjoyed. If you're ever in Vegas, I'm not very political when it comes to jiu-jitsu, so everyone's welcome.
Awesome.
I've always had an open door policy, and it's been like that for the last 9 years, and it remains so. Got to show my teeth every now and then. People try to take what you've built on your own, so you got to show your teeth every now and then. But I'm a very open guy for camps too. For Worlds, Masters Worlds, Pan Ams. We have camps going on, so everyone's welcome. And yeah, it was a lot of fun, man. We'll do it again.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the hospitality, man.
Absolutely.
I'll let you get to class. And again, come check it out. Robert Drysdale, episode 46.